Okay, so I know a bunch of you have been like really digging into Lit RPG lately. And honestly, who can blame you? It's got that addictive quality, kind of like leveling up in a video game, but, with more words
Yeah.
and way more creative ways to die, probably. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this whole world of Lit RPG and all its weird and wonderful subgenres.
And we're going deep with this awesome article by Paul Bello over at LitRPG Reads. He breaks it all down so well.
Right. It's like he snuck a peek into my reading list. But okay, before we go full-on Dungeon Master here, let's start with the basics, just in case someone out there is like, Lit what now? We're talking books that take those elements we love from video games, like big stats, levels, skills, those sweet, sweet loot drops, and weave them into stories. And like any good story, it's not just about the numbers going up. We need compelling characters, interesting worlds, all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's about that fusion of mechanics and narrative, the way those gaming elements can actually enhance the storytelling. And that's what's led to so many different flavors of Lit RPG.
Flavors, I like that. Okay, so first on the menu, we have GameLit. It's like the gateway drug of Lit RPG, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's often where people start. GameLit's great because it's not always in your face with the whole game system thing. It's more like, hey, these elements are here to make the story even cooler, not to completely take over.
It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Right, like we get it, there are stats, but tell us about these characters, this world, what makes them tick. Okay, this might sound familiar. Have you ever seen the movie Ready Player One?
Yeah, for sure. Who hasn't?
Exactly. Total blast. And think about it, even though it's set in this super immersive virtual reality world and packed with video game references, the story works even if you're not a hardcore gamer.
Right. The heart of it is about friendship, identity, fighting for what you believe in universal themes, really.
Totally. It's like GameLit at its finest, using those gaming elements to tell a story that resonates on a human level.
And that's what makes it so broadly appealing.
Okay, but what if you're all about that level up life? You know, that feeling when you're rooting for a character and you can practically feel them growing stronger with each chapter.
You're talking about progression fantasy, right?
Bingo, where it's
Yeah.
all about that satisfying journey from zero to hero.
And it doesn't always have to be literal levels either. Sometimes it's about mastering a specific skill or climbing the ranks in some magical order. The point is, you're watching characters evolve as they overcome challenges.
Oh, and speaking of epic journeys, Cradle by Will White. So good. Seriously, this series is like a masterclass in progression fantasy. Intricate magic systems, characters you actually care about, and those fist-pump-the-air moments when a character finally masters a technique. It's got it all.
Cradle gets it right. It understands that real growth takes time, effort, setbacks. You don't just wake up one day as the chosen one, you know.
Right, you got to earn it, which, let's be honest, can be a bit of a process in real life. So if you're looking for a quicker escape, may I interest you in a one-way ticket to a completely different reality? We're talking Isekai LitRPG.
The ultimate, what if I woke up in a video game fantasy?
Exactly. Isekai literally means different world, and this subgenre is all about those you're not in Kansas anymore moments. Like, boom, suddenly you're battling goblins and leveling up your swordsmanship instead of stressing over deadlines and bills. Sign me up.
Sounds pretty tempting.
Right. And there's no better example of this than The Wandering Inn. This web serial just throws you headfirst into this new world alongside the main character, Erin. You're learning as she's learning, freaking out as she's freaking out. It's a wild ride.
What makes The Wandering Inn so great is how relatable Erin is.
Yeah.
She's funny, she's flawed, she has no idea what she's doing half the time. It's like watching a friend figure out how to survive in a world where magic is real and the food talks back.
Don't forget the giant, intelligent spiders.
Oh, right. Can't forget about those.
But, okay, as much as I love a good dungeon crawl and a solid power fantasy, sometimes I'm in the mood for something a little darker, a little grittier, something that doesn't shy away from the shadows.
You're talking about dark lit RPG, right?
Ding, 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 we have a winner. It's like someone took those classic lit RPG tropes and injected them with a dose of Game of Thrones level intrigue.
It's about exploring those what-ifs that other subgenres might shy away from.
Yeah.
What if dying in the game had real consequences? What if the line between good and evil wasn't so clear-cut?
It's like if your favorite fantasy world suddenly got a whole lot more interesting and dangerous.
And thought-provoking, too. Because dark lit RPG isn't just about violence for the sake of violence. It's about exploring those moral gray areas, those tough choices that characters have to make when the stakes are high.
Right. It's about the psychological impact of those choices and the ripple effects they have on the world around them.
And sometimes It's about exploring those darker impulses that we all have.
Which brings us to one of the most talked about examples of dark lit RPG, Awaken Online.
Yeah, that one will definitely stay with you.
It dives headfirst into some heavy stuff. I'm talking bullying, revenge, the dark side of virtual reality, all that good stuff.
And it doesn't hold back, so be warned.
Seriously. But it's also a masterclass in suspense and world building. Like, even though it goes to some pretty dark places, you can't help but keep turning the pages.
And for a really unique take on dark lit RPG, everybody loves large chests. It's told from the perspective of a monster. The title alone should tell you it's wild.
Oh, for sure.
It's a great example of how dark lit RPG can subvert expectations and offer a totally fresh perspective on the genre. But speaking of fresh perspectives, let's talk about something near and dear to my heart, shall we? The world of crafting.
Ooh, crafting lit RPG. You know me too well. Forget crafting IRL. Crafting lit RPG is where it's at. I mean, who hasn't spent hours agonizing over their character build in a game? This is like that impulse, but times 1,000.
It really is. Crafting lit RPG takes that love of creation, of understanding intricate systems, and turns it into an art form.
Okay, so imagine this. You're not just like finding cool loot, you're the one making it. You're the blacksmith forging legendary weapons. You're the alchemist brewing potions that could save the world. Or end it.
Or you're the dungeon itself. Have you read The Crafter's Dungeon?
Ooh, yeah, that one gets meta.
It really does. Instead of playing the hero, you're the dungeon core,
Right.
designing challenges, attracting monsters, basically, becoming the dungeon master of your own little or not so little world.
Okay, that is seriously cool. It's like, forget saving the princess. I'm going to build a labyrinth so epic, bards will sing about it for centuries.
Exactly. And the best part is, it's not just about being, like, evil and putting spikes everywhere. There's this whole element of strategy, resource management, even ecology. You have to think about what kind of monsters will thrive in your dungeon, how to lure in adventurers, how to make it challenging, but, not impossible.
Unless that's your jam, of course.
Sure.
Some dungeon cores are just out for blood.
True, true. But even then, there's a certain artistry to it, wouldn't you say? It's all about crafting the perfect dungeon crawl experience.
I feel like we need to get you a Dungeon Master screen for these recordings.
Right, I'd rock that.
But okay, before we get too lost in dungeon design, there's another crafting-heavy title I got to mention, Life Reset.
Ah, yes. That one takes a different approach to crafting, focusing more on the community aspect.
It's like, forget building a dungeon. How about building a whole village?
Exactly. You're managing resources, creating infrastructure, making sure everyone has what they need to survive and thrive. It's surprisingly addictive.
See, this is why I love crafting lit RPG. So much variety. Okay, ready for a complete 180? Let's talk about Wuxia LitRPG, where martial arts mastery meets lit RPG progression.
Ah, yes. Wuxia LitRPG. This is where things get really interesting.
Imagine, like, those classic kung fu movies, but with stat sheets and level ups.
Precisely. It's all about the pursuit of martial arts mastery, the cultivation of inner strength, the epic battles against impossible odds.
Okay, but instead of spending years meditating on a mountaintop, you're reading about it. Sign me up.
And the Dragonheart Heritage is a fantastic place to start if you're new to Wuxia LitRPG. It's got those epic fight scenes, a really well-developed magic system, and characters you can't help but root for.
Plus, who doesn't love a good dragon?
Exactly. And for a more introspective take on the subgenre, I'd recommend Painting the Mists. It focuses more on the internal journey of self-cultivation, the discipline and dedication required to become a true master.
So it's not all just like flashy fight scenes and superpowers.
Oh, there are definitely flashy fight scenes and superpowers, but Painting the Mists also delves into the philosophical side of Wuxia, exploring themes of balance, harmony, and the pursuit of enlightenment. It's about mastering yourself as much as it is about mastering your techniques.
Deep stuff. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's rewind for a sec and circle back to our starting point, GameLit. What I love about this subgenre is how versatile it is. It can be as subtle or as overt with its game mechanics as it needs to be to serve the story.
Absolutely. GameLit is like the chameleon of lit RPG. It can blend into almost any genre, any setting, any type of story you can imagine.
It's like that one friend who fits in everywhere.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so interesting to explore. You never know what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be good.
Right. Like, you could have a hardcore sci-fi space opera with GameLit elements, or a cozy mystery with a dash of stat-based sleuthing. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
And the best part is, GameLit often uses those gaming elements to explore deeper themes about humanity, identity, and the world around us.
Like we were saying earlier about Ready Player One. Sure, it's a blast of a sci-fi adventure, but it also makes you think about the power of virtual reality, the dangers of corporate greed, the importance of human connection in a digital age. And it does it all while being incredibly entertaining.
Exactly. And that's the magic of GameLit, isn't it? It can sneak up on you with its thought-provoking themes while you're busy enjoying the ride.
Speaking of enjoying the ride, let's talk about that irresistible pull of watching characters level up, push past their limits, and become total badasses. You know, that Rocky training montage feeling, but with more magic and fewer punching meat carcasses. It's like that feeling when you finally unlock that awesome crafting recipe you've been grinding for. So satisfying.
It's true. There's that deep satisfaction we get from creating, from building something from scratch. It's like this innate human drive to leave your mark on the world.
And in crafting LitRPG, your mark might be a legendary sword, a life-saving potion, or, you know, a really, really effective death trap.
Well, there's that. Speaking of death traps, have you gotten to the Crafter's Dungeon yet?
Oh man, how could I forget about that one? That's where crafting a LitRPG takes a hard left turn into awesome. Suddenly, you're not just crafting objects, you're crafting an entire freaking dungeon.
It flips the whole script, right? Instead of being the hero, you're the dungeon core, figuring out how to make your dungeon the stuff of legends. Or nightmares.
Right. It's like, move over, adventurers. There's a new dungeon master in town.
Exactly. And it's not just about, like, putting monsters in rooms and calling it a day. You're thinking about the layout, the traps, the lighting.
Ambiance. Got to set the moves.
Precisely. You want adventurers to tell tales of your dungeon for generations to come. Assuming they survive, of course.
Right. Survival optional. But, okay, if the crafter's dungeon is all about crafting the perfect death trap, Life Reset is all about, well, life and community.
Yeah, it's a different kind of crafting experience for sure. More about building a thriving village than a monster-infested dungeon.
So it's like city planning, but with more magic and fewer zoning regulations.
Pretty much. You're managing resources, making sure everyone has food and shelter, dealing with, you know, the occasional goblin raid. It's actually really engrossing.
See, this is why I love this genre. There's just so much variety. Okay, but before we wrap up our LitRPG deep dive, we got to talk about Wuxia LitRPG. It's like if Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon got a stat sheet.
It's a really cool fusion of Eastern and Western storytelling traditions. You've got those high-flying martial arts sequences, the emphasis on honor and discipline, the whole idea of cultivating your inner energy, or chi.
Chi, like Wi-Fi, but with more punching.
Pretty much, but it's also about the mental and spiritual aspects of martial arts, not just the physical.
So it's like meditation, but with swords.
There are definitely swords involved.
Sold. Okay, so where should someone start if they want to get into Wuxia LitRPG?
The Dragonheart Heritage is always a good bet. It's got a classic coming-of-age story, really well-developed characters, and those epic fight scenes that make you want to punch the air.
Or maybe enroll in a martial arts class.
Maybe. But if you're looking for something a little more introspective, a little more focused on that internal journey of self-cultivation, Painting the Mists is fantastic.
So less punching, more pondering.
There's still some punching.
Good, good. I need a little action in my life.
Yeah.
But seriously, this has been awesome. We've covered so much ground today. GameLit, progression fantasy, Isekai, dark LitRPG, crafting, Wuxia.
And we've only just scratched the surface, really. There are so many other amazing subgenres and authors out there just waiting to be discovered.
Right. It's like this whole multiverse of LitRPG goodness. So for everyone listening, if any of this has piqued your interest, even a little bit, don't be afraid to dive in and explore.
Absolutely. There's a LitRPG world out there for everyone, no matter what kind of stories you enjoy.
Whether you're looking for epic adventures, thought-provoking dilemmas, or just a really satisfying crafting system to get lost in.
LitRPG has something for you.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up here. Until next time, may your stats be high and your reading list ever growing.